New inventions, new machines, new methods of transportation and intercourse are making over the whole scene of action year by year. So tech, right? It is an absolute impossibility to educate the child for any fixed station in life. Okay, so we can't. So if we educate kids for the tech of today, by the time they are older, that will be obsolete, right? Obsolescence. AI will not be here when our kids are adults. Or if it is, it'll be like email, right? Something that is tedious and useless and would better be used by little paper notes, right? If companies were really interested in efficiency, but a lazy negative aspect, right? A negative flywheel in the development of businesses is what emails have become. Actual memos were far more efficient, effective, improved worker productivity. Okay, so far as education is conducted unconsciously or consciously on this basis, it results in fitting the future citizen for no station in life. Think about all of the tech people who were educated in the 90s for good paying jobs, and they get good paying jobs in their 20s and 30s, and then they started to see some cuts. Now they're in their 40s and 50s, and their job was cut, right? Or they're writing code. They're not writing code now because AI is writing it. But makes him a drone, a hanger-on, an accidental retarding influence in his onward movement. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the word retarding, but it is what it is. But yeah, hanger-on. If you study for the hot jobs today, you go for such a specific degree at a university, right? Know that at some point that is going to be obsolete. Instead of caring for himself and for others, he becomes one who has himself to be cared for. Right? We find, you need welfare. If you don't have a job and you're in your 50s, it's not enough, right? Not enough. You have to move into something smaller, cheaper neighborhood. Here, too, the ethical responsibility of school. On the social side, must be interpreted in its broadest and freest spirit. It is equivalent to that of the training of the child, which will give him such possession of himself that he may take charge of himself, may not only adapt himself to the changes that are going on, but have the power to shape and direct them. So we're educating people for change. Part of the reason I have students songwrite, I have students improvise, is because we are teaching them to adapt, to take charge of themselves as a creator. Apart from participation in social life, the school has no moral end or aim. So I don't know that I agree with that. What do you think? Apart from participation in social life, the school has no moral end or aim. Is there a moral end individually, separate from the social? Is there a moral aim or end between the student and their spirituality, right? Their conception of God. So the school, maybe he means a public school for that, but I'm not sure. Even so, there might be other, if everything social? I'm not sure that it is. But let's see. As long as we confine ourselves to the school as an isolated institution, we have no directing principles because we have no object. For example, the end of education is said to be a harmonious development. This is a medieval conception. Harmonious development of all the powers of the individual. There we go. That's definitely medieval, right? The harmony of the vir perfectus in the Middle Ages. Vir perfectus. as a person, because there's men and women being educated, even in the Middle Ages, in different ways, maybe different subjects, different emphases, but it was all, both sides were being educated for harmony. You think about the medieval theologian and song and composer, Hildegard of Bingen. She represents that womanly education that was harmonious but powerful, right? Powerful Latin that she writes in, very spiritually deep. That was the ideal in the Middle Ages, right? The individual in harmony with the universe, with God, right? Universe is why we get the word university. People were to study all subjects of the universe. Hence, no reference to social life or membership is apparent. I don't know that it's not there. It's definitely there because the church is there. Communities are there. Hildegard was a Benedictine nun. Her convent was there. And yet many think we have in it an adequate or thoroughgoing definition of the goal of education. So this is what Dewey is innovating, right? What's he pushing against? So if you read somebody like Story, right? St. Story of, where is Story from? Or maybe it's Strama Story of, oh, I'll have to look it up. Story, but, or maybe it's Sturmy, S-T-U-R-I or S-T-U-R-M-I. If you look that up, that'll be enough to figure out who that I'm talking about. Wrote one of the most used texts of the Middle Ages for education. But if this definition be taken independently of social relationships, and I don't think it was ever taken independently with social relationships. Okay, continue on. We have no way of telling what is meant by any one of the terms employed. We do not know what a power is. So what's a power? I think the Bible defines what power is, right? For the Middle Ages in education. We do not know what development is. Oh, that's true. Development wasn't... was not a big focus, whereas development in Dewey's time was connected to recapitulation theory. That is, children grow through the different races, from lesser races to higher races. It's a racist idea, but it's the basis of developmental education in Dewey's time. We do not know what harmony is. Oh, I'm a music teacher, so maybe we do know what harmony is, but maybe not. A power is a power only with reference to the use of which it's put. So we got a behaviorist definition of power, right? Behavioralist. What can be seen? Use to which it is put. The function it has to serve. If we leave out the uses supplied by social life, we have nothing but the old faculty psychology to tell what is meant by power and what its specific powers are. The principle reduces itself to enumerating a lot of faculties like perception, memory, reasoning, etc., and then stating that each one of these powers needs to be developed. Yeah, no, that seems a little murky to me, but I'll have to reread it, see. Okay. The principle reduces itself to enumerating a lot of faculties like perception, memory, reasoning, etc., and then stating that each one of these powers needs to be developed. Okay, maybe that'll be clear when we continue on. Education then becomes a gymnastic exercise. Acute powers of observation and memory might be developed by studying Chinese characters. Acuteness in reasoning might be got by discussing the scholastic subtleties of the Middle Ages. He does bring up the Middle Ages. I think that my noticing of the idea of harmony, right, was probably accurate. The simple fact is that there is no isolated faculty of observation or memory or reasoning. So these things do not exist by themselves. any more than there is any original faculty of blacksmithing or carpentry, or steam engineering. Faculties mean simply that particular impulses and habits have been coordinated or framed with reference to accomplishing certain definite kinds of work. We need to know that the social situations in which the individual will have to use ability to observe, recollect, imagine, or reason in order to have any way of telling what training in mental powers actually means. Okay, so for Dewey, the meaning of power has to do with what the power is being used to accomplish. That is kind of work. And you can see why vocational educators, VOTEC, took on the Dewey theory pretty heftily in the 20th century, and why we ended up with a lot of VOTEC schools in the high schools. And there's so many fewer of them today. So a lot of people that don't seem to like Dewey on one end really like VOTEC on the other. It's a very practical way to get a career without taking a lot of debt. And we'll continue there, probably only one more session for this chapter. Have a blessed day.